What's up YouTube, Sturk here. In this video, we're going to teach you how to master your aim. There is a methodology, there is a method to the madness. I've now done this on controller and keyboard and mouse, so do keep in mind this will work on both. I'm going to walk you through settings, methodology, and everything, as well as a few little tips and tricks. Please like and subscribe to this video for more. We go live on YouTube almost daily. Let's get to it. All right, guys, the first thing that I want to do here is walk us through an exercise to help you find the sensitivity that is perfect for you. So the first thing that I would like you to keep in mind is this probably needs to be done when you have not played at all that day. So do this before you play for the day. It's going to make it a little bit easier. Otherwise, what happens is you go... Your brain kind of puts you with a sensitivity you're more familiar with, so you're more likely to end up with a similar sensitivity rather than something you're comfortable with. So, assuming we start brand new, brand fresh day, there's two settings we're going to change, okay? Mouse sensitivity if you're on keyboard and mouse, and if you're on controller, you're going to either change your look sensitivity here, or in your advanced controls, you'll be changing your yaw and pitch at the same time. You can mess around with the extra yaw and pitch, but these are advanced. I probably would leave these on 0. I always have. If you want to mess with these, you probably know what you're doing. You probably don't need this part of the video anyway. All right, so we have our yaw and our sensitivity multiplier where we're used to, or where we think we want to be, right? We're going to do a simple exercise here. Just grab any gun, stay from the hip. We're going to do this exercise hip fire, and we're going to do this exercise ADS, aiming down sight. The reason we're going to do both is because it will give us an idea of where our sensitivity needs to be on hip fire as well as ADS. All right, so what we're going to do this starting close to our object. We're going to stand here and we're going to put the dot on his head. We're going to go hip fire first, and I'm going to strafe across the screen back and forth and try to keep the dot on his head. Now, I want you to keep in mind, this is not about accuracy. This is about engaging the different muscles it will take you to keep and track a target in combat. If this feels good, you move on to the next step. If this does not feel good, we adjust our sensitivity, either our mouse sensitivity, we'll adjust it down or up, or we'll adjust our pitch and yaw on controller. Once we do this and we like how it feels, we step back to medium range. And we do it again. We just try to keep it on his head. Again, if you feel you need to adjust, make your adjustments, and then start over. So if I made any adjustments, I start over. I go back here. Feels good. I go here. Yeah, feels good. The last thing you want to do is far away. We'll do the same exercise. This engages all of the different muscles that it takes at all of the different ranges that we would have combat. Okay? Assuming that we now find a sensitivity that we like, again, please remember, this is not about being accurate. This is about how comfortable tracking feels for you in that sensitivity. If it's not comfortable, adapt. Once you found the right sensitivity for hip fire, you can do this on every optic. So here's my 1 times. It's good. I can even put it on a wingman. That way I have more strafe speed. Feels good. I like it. Okay. And so on. And then 2 times, I probably wouldn't worry about doing 2 times up close, right? You should not be ADS that close. I'm going to do it from medium. All right, I'm going to do the 2 times for medium range. Once that's comfortable, right? If maybe my 2 times is not comfortable, I can actually adjust the per optic sensitivity up or down. Be careful with these. They are sensitive. You don't need to make huge adjustments. Probably do it by 0.1 at a time. Okay, so if 1.1 feels too fast for me, I'm going to try 1.0 and then repeat the exercise. I can do that for every single optic 3 times. I could do it with 4 times. I could go put on a sniper rifle and give that a try. I could do it with every single optic, and you probably should. Although I don't think per optic sensitivity is fantastic to mess with, at minimum, you should probably do the ones that you use the most often. So your 1, 2, and 3 times. Your snipers, we're not using snipers too often, but you may end up wanting to mess with those. All right. So we have our sensitivity figured out. Everything is dialed in. One of the things that we need to make sure we're doing while we're mastering aim is making sure that we're practicing with realistic methodology. Okay. This is my experience and what I've visually seen of friends, other streamers. What I notice is that most people on controller are comfortable in close quarter combat. And what that means in their gameplay is that they ignore long range. Most people on mouse and key are comfortable long range, and then they kind of ignore short range. You need to keep this in mind because you need to do the exact opposite. All right. Every input device has its positives and negatives. And if you sit around and do nothing about it, it is always going to be a negative for you. Okay. So if I am on controller or if I am brand new to mouse and key, I'm going to focus on 2 primary ranges. One of the ranges that I want to focus on is my long range. And every day you should go into the range, grab 1,000 rounds, and shoot at the back target. It will take you 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Worth doing. And it's going to massively increase. I realized that I just turned my game audio off. It's going to massively increase your ability to shoot long range in this game. To shoot and track. 1,000 rounds a day. It's 5 minutes. 5 minutes is worth it. The other exercise that you should do often is close range. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. Ideally, you want a buddy, and you guys kind of want to spar at close range, maybe with shotguns or hip firing your weapons, whatever. If you have nobody, the only thing I could possibly tell you is, consciously make sure you're hip firing a lot in game, of course, but maybe run around the dummies as an octane stim. Bobbing and weaving, and I know it seems silly, but it is brutally important that you practice on your weaknesses every day, and I would do that again for another 5 minutes tops. If you do that daily, put your nice 1,000 rounds down range, another 500 or 1,000 up close, you are going to outperform your peers by leaps and bounds. You may not see it, but a lot of elite level players, a lot of high level players are practicing their aim in various ways. What you may see or what you may perceive as somebody just warming up in the range when you see them is probably them working on their weaknesses, right? I warm up in the range every single day at the beginning of every single stream, and everybody thinks that I'm just warming up. In fact, what I'm doing is practicing my weaknesses so that they are no longer weaknesses. This is the methodology that you need to make sure you're bringing into your gameplay if you want to perform at your peak. A few tips and tricks here. You can practice movement in the range. I do a lot. I recommend specifically things like wall jumping, tap strafing if they decide to keep it to some level. I would also put Pathfinder zips down, practice your grapple jumping, practice your zipline play, do different things, practice different things, get used to the movements, because we don't know what maps are going to come out. We don't know what map is going to be on a certain split. So you want to make sure you're familiar with all of these things at all times. And overall, it's just a great way to warm up. So between movement, long range, short range, you can be in and out of the range in 15 minutes every day. And that is how you step yourself to becoming a master player as fast as possible. A couple of tips and tricks. Recoil control. I'm not one of those guys that believes that memorizing a pattern is going to actually teach you the mouse control or joystick control and help you shoot that gun better in combat. However, if you do feel like learning a pattern is going to help you significantly, there are quite a few guides out there to help you learn that pattern and help you pull against it. I probably would not focus on something like that until you're at a pretty high level. And by high level, I would say well above the average player, being a gold player or so. So maybe around the time that you get to diamond or so, you might want to consider things like that. But I wouldn't focus too hard on it if you don't personally see value in that. Other tips and tricks. So on mouse and key specifically, there are a couple of different ways for you to aim that are unique to Apex Legends. Okay, one of them is called oscillating, and I'm gonna show you oscillating. Another one is called jitter aiming. I cannot jitter aim. I think it's a little taxing. I will teach you a variation of jitter aiming that I believe is much easier and more realistic. Okay. Oscillating. What oscillating is when you're aiming down sight and you're shooting at a target, what you're doing is spinning small, tight circles. And in essence, it's deleting recoil. Okay. This, in my opinion, works pretty well for targets that are standing still. I struggle to oscillate and track a target. I feel like it's very difficult. Okay. But oscillating is small circles. And more or less, that's resetting the recoil. If you're having trouble oscillating, you have to make sure that your oscillating is happening at a certain speed. If you're not oscillating fast enough, it's not deleting the recoil. It's not actually called deleting the recoil, but that is the best way I can describe it. So if I don't oscillate fast enough, the recoil is still there, and my bullets might not go where I'm expecting them to. Again, oscillating is kind of difficult, but it will work. So one of the other things that I like, there is a technique called jitter aiming, and the technical, the agreed upon definition of jitter aiming is when you tense your forearm muscles so hard that they vibrate. And you guys probably can't, right? You see a slight vibration in my forearm, and it's going to vibrate side to side, and you shoot at a target. That gives you actually the best recoil control, because that will literally make your recoil nothing if you vibrate fast enough. The negatives to jitter aiming is it is very taxing. It's probably not something you want to be doing long term. Over the course of months or years, that's how you end up with injuries. I would not do jitter aiming. And in addition, it is very, very, very difficult to track a target when you jitter aim. I know it's very popular. It's very cool for TikTok videos and YouTube shorts, and everybody shows how impressive it is, but it's actually really hard to do with any sort of frequency. I wouldn't do it. The variation of jitter aiming that I think is something that you can do in combat and do at all times. I do it quite often. I call this wobbling. Debatably, it's jitter aiming, but it is done in a much easier way. And I can give you guys an example of this. So, whereas jitter aiming would require me straining my forearm muscles to the point that they're over flexing and causing a vibration, wobbling is where I would kind of go like peck to peck on a person, and I would just make sure that I'm doing this, as accurate as possible. It doesn't have to be, a perfectly horizontal line, but that little bit of wiggling makes a huge, huge difference. And the goal here is to make sure that you're wobbling side to side fast enough that you can beat the fire rate. And in essence, as the gun is firing, it'll be passing across to where you're actually trying to hit. So the middle of their chest. And I'm just wobbling in between shots. So that does take a small amount of practice because every gun has a slightly different fire rate, but it is replicatable. And as you can see, I'm not a pro at it. It's something I've been putting into play more recently. So I can wobble for part or all of the shot if I really focus. It does take some practice, and again, every gun has a different fire rate, so it will feel a little differently on every gun. But that is sustainable. That is not something that requires me over tensing muscles, possibly leading to long-term injuries, which is silly to say in esports, but it is a reality. You have to be conscious of things like that. I wouldn't hop on the jitter aim fad. That is a good way to get yourself injured as a mouse and key player. Stick with all the tips in this video. I have many, many more coming, but if you guys do this, I promise you it's going to bring your aim to the next level. You have to consciously be working on the things you are weak at. Make sure you guys drop a like and subscribe and hang around for more. I go live on YouTube every single day right now. Every single day right now. So make sure you guys drop a sub. Thanks.